Have you ever noticed how society just kind of forces people into these highly specific scripted roles?
Oh, absolutely. All the time.
Right, like you walk into a room, you meet someone new, and almost instantly your brain starts trying to, cast them in a recognizable part.
Just based on like a fraction of a second of visual data.
Exactly. And we do this to everyone. I mean, it's human nature,
Yeah.
but it becomes incredibly rigid and, quite frankly, damaging when it comes to marginalized groups.
It really does.
It's as though society just hands them a script the moment their life circumstances change and says, this is who you are now. Read the lines, hit your marks, do not improvise.
Right. There's no room for deviation.
None at all. So today in this deep dive, we're looking at a deeply concentrated excerpt from a text titled About Disability. And it argues that the script handed to the disabled community is essentially a demand for helplessness.
Yeah, and it's a really profound framing, honestly.
Yeah, it is. Okay, let's unpack this because the author doesn't really pull any punches right out of the gate.
No, they don't. And I think that's important because those societal scripts, they're rarely written for the benefit of the person having to, perform them.
Right. They're for the audience.
Entirely for the comfort of the audience. And the text we are examining today identifies this immediately. The author states that society has created this mindset where disabled people are supposed to act dumb and be unable to take care of themselves.
Supposed to act dumb. That is just, wow.
Yeah, it doesn't leave much room for ambiguity. It identifies an enforced infantilization, basically. We're looking at the what and the why of societal biases today, and that is a massive what.
I really want to focus on that specific phrase, supposed to be acting dumb, because it suggests that incompetence isn't just assumed by people, it's actively required.
Yes, exactly. It's a prerequisite for interacting with the able-bodied world.
But I mean, I want to challenge the motive behind that for a second. When we talk about society infantilizing disabled adults, framing it as this mechanism of deliberate control, it feels almost, I don't know, malicious.
You think it's too harsh a word?
Well, couldn't this infantilization just be a clumsy, maybe evolutionarily ingrained protective instinct? Like, we see vulnerability and our brains just misfire, so we treat a grown adult like a child out of a misplaced desire to care for them.
I mean, that's a very common defense of paternalism, but I think it lets society off the hook a bit too easily.
You think so?
I do. Because even if the origin of the impulse is some misplaced protective instinct, the actual function it serves in modern society is absolutely about control and convenience.
Okay, walk me through that. How is it about convenience?
Think about the dynamics of paternalism, right? If I view you as a child, if I assume you are intellectually compromised or entirely helpless, I don't really have to negotiate with you.
Oh, right? Because you're the adult in the room.
Exactly. I don't have to respect your autonomy. I don't have to listen to your dissenting opinions about your own life or, the world around you.
So it's basically an erasure of agency, but it's disguised as care?
Precisely. Because if you are an equal, your needs and your voice, well, they require accommodation. They require compromise.
Which takes effort.
Right. But if you are a dependent in my eyes, I dictate the terms of your existence. So society can convince itself it's acting in their best interest, which relieves any guilt, while entirely avoiding the friction of treating someone as an equal.
Wow. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And the text points out that disabled people are supposed to act this way, like they're cast in a play they never auditioned for.
That's a great way to put it.
You get handed this costume and a script of helplessness, and if you try to show your actual capabilities, the director society gets angry.
Yes, because when a disabled adult asserts their intelligence or demonstrates competence, it breaks that unwritten contract.
It creates such a strange psychological environment for someone to navigate. I mean, think about it. If you are growing up with a disability or acquiring one later in life, you aren't just managing your actual physical or neurological reality.
No, you're managing a perpetual public relations campaign.
Exactly. You have to constantly prove you have a functioning brain while simultaneously navigating a world that seems to get defensive if you prove it too well.
And the cognitive load of that is just immense. You are spending a vast amount of energy simply mitigating other people's flawed perceptions.
Yeah, it sounds exhausting.
It is. And the real tragedy of this societal script of universal helplessness is that it's based on a massive oversimplification. It relies on treating a wildly diverse demographic as just a single homogeneous entity.
Which is exactly what the author targets next in the text. They deliberately fracture this monolithic view.
Right, they break it down into three sides.
Yeah, three distinct sides of the community. And the first side the author defines consists of people who cannot take care of daily tasks themselves. The examples they give are really highly personal, like bathing, feeding themselves, doing their hair, putting clothes on.
What's fascinating here is how the author rejects the idea of a single disabled experience. This first group represents a very specific, deeply intimate reality of physical reliance.
Right.
When your routine bodily autonomy is fundamentally intertwined with another human being.
Hmm.
I mean, that requires an immense amount of trust and coordination.
Oh, for sure.
But the societal error, the heuristic failure, really is looking at this requirement for physical assistance and instantly conflating it with a cognitive deficit.
Right. We struggle to separate the physical act from the intellectual capacity.
We really do.
It's like if someone needs an aid's hands to button their shirt, society reflexively assumes they also need an aid to make their financial decisions or, dictate their political views.
And that conflation is the root of the dumb and helpless script we were just talking about. It's a profound lack of imagination on society's part.
Yeah, lack of imagination is a good word for it.
A person can require total physical assistance with grooming or eating and still possess a brilliant analytical mind or, run a corporation or be a deeply engaged parent. The physical reliance does not dictate the intellectual or emotional landscape of the individual.
But physical mobility and daily grooming, that's just one facet of this existence because the text immediately forces us to look at a much heavier reality.
It does. It shifts gears quite dramatically.
Yeah, the second side of the community is defined as those who have medical issues that cause death and require round-the-clock care from caregivers. I mean, we are moving from the logistics of daily life straight into mortality.
It is a really stark shift. We're no longer just talking about managing physical environments. We're talking about actively managing survival.
Right.
Round-the-clock care implies a state of complex medical fragility. This demographic lives in a constant, intimate relationship with the medical system, with life-sustaining technology, and with the persistent reality of premature mortality.
The psychological weight of that seems almost unfathomable, and not just for the individual, but for their caregivers, too.
Absolutely.
And yet, this is a reality that is almost entirely absent from mainstream conversations about disability. I mean, we see inspirational stories about someone overcoming a physical barrier, climbing a mountain or whatever.
Right, the triumph narratives.
Yeah, but we rarely see society engaging with the reality of terminal medical fragility. Why the avoidance? Is it just too depressing for people?
Well, it forces the non-disabled public to confront their own existential dread. The disabled body, in this specific context, acts as a memento mori, a reminder of human fragility and the ultimate limits of modern medicine.
Ah, so it makes people think about their own mortality.
Exactly. Society prefers a narrative of progress and perpetual health. When confronted with medical issues that actively cause death despite interventions, the public becomes profoundly uncomfortable.
Right, it shatters the illusion of invulnerability.
Yes, completely.
If society acknowledges this second side too closely, they have to admit that biology is chaotic and uncontrollable. So instead, they just sanitize it or push it out of sight into institutional settings or private homes.
And that leaves the individuals and their caregivers profoundly isolated.
Yeah.
That isolation is a direct result of societal avoidance. And while society avoids the second side because of mortality, they struggle with the third side for entirely different reasons.
Right, the third side. The author defines this group as disabled people who are independent and live out in the community.
Which completely contradicts the opening premise of the script, right?
Yes. Total physical and mental independence, living and operating within the wider community, fully self-directed. But here is where I question the mechanics of society's reaction.
Okay, what do you mean?
Well, if society's foundational belief is that disability equates to helplessness, what actually happens when they encounter an independent disabled person? Do they just ignore them, or is there an active attempt to force them back into that first category of dependence? Like, does society only want to look at the first two sides because it reinforces their stereotype?
Oh, that's exactly what happens. It manifests as intense cognitive dissonance.
Yeah.
And the reaction is usually an attempt to invalidate the person's identity to save the stereotype.
Really, just invalidate them entirely.
Yeah. When confronted with an independent, self-sufficient disabled person, society often defaults to phrases like, well, you must not be that disabled, or you seem fine to me.
Oh, wow. So they just revoke their membership to the disabled category so the overarching rule can survive intact.
Yes, it is a defense mechanism to protect societal prejudice. Because if the independent disabled person is legitimate, then the societal script of helplessness is a lie.
And people don't want to admit they've been believing a lie.
Exactly. And rather than do the hard work of rewriting the script, society chooses to gaslight the individual.
That is wild.
But the text doesn't let society off the hook there. Even when these independent individuals are out in the community, their presence is tolerated under highly specific conditional terms.
Right. Which brings us to what I think is honestly the most painful observation in the text. The author writes that society does not want change in physical aspects. They are, quote, okay with seeing us, but not us being loud and outspoken.
Conditional acceptance.
Yeah.
It is the demand that marginalized people be decorative, not disruptive.
It makes me think of a museum exhibit. You know, society wants disabled people to be like paintings on a wall, visible, stationary, and silent.
Right, just to be looked at.
Exactly. But the moment the painting speaks up or asks the museum to rebuild the walls because the lighting is bad, the public becomes incredibly uncomfortable.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it's like the difference between a software bug and physical hardware damage.
Oh, I like that analogy.
If someone drops a phone and the screen shatters, everyone sees the broken hardware and understands the phone needs to be handled differently. But if the phone looks pristine on the outside, yet the software is glitching and the operating system is failing, people just get annoyed that the phone isn't responding fast enough.
Right, they just get frustrated with it.
Yeah. Society wants the disabled community to be visible in a very specific, non-threatening way, but the moment they require the operating system of society to be updated, the physical aspects, the public loses patience.
That's a much more accurate way to look at it than viewing them merely as passive objects. And the resistance to physical change is deeply revealing about societal values, isn't it?
It really is. When the text points out that society does not want change in physical aspects, we are talking about the built environment. Ramps, elevators, sensory-friendly lighting, accessible transit.
Stuff that costs money.
Yes, architecture is not neutral. The way a society builds its physical environment is a direct reflection of who it believes belongs in public life.
So, if a building only has stairs, it is making a definitive statement about who is expected to enter.
Exactly. It's essentially a keep-out sign. And demanding changes to those physical aspects requires effort, capital, and most significantly, an admission that the world was built exclusively for the able-bodied majority.
It's an admission of systemic exclusion.
Yes. And the refusal to make those physical changes is intimately tied to the societal demand for silence. The text links them flawlessly. No physical change. Be seen, but don't be loud.
But what constitutes being loud in this context? Because it clearly isn't just about volume, right? Like yelling.
And not at all. Being loud is political action.
Yeah.
It is the act of demanding human rights and basic accommodations.
Okay, so like filing a complaint.
Right. It means pointing out the broken elevator for the 5th time, or filing a grievance when a business remains inaccessible, or simply refusing to apologize for taking up space. Society views this self-advocacy not as empowerment, but as an inconvenience.
The implicit bargain society offers is just incredibly toxic. It's like they're saying, we will allow you to exist in public spaces, but only if you don't make us feel bad about how poorly designed those spaces are, and only if you absorb the physical friction of our world without complaining.
And the moment that bargain is broken, the societal script flips from infantilization to villainization.
Really, it just completely flips.
Oh yeah, you are no longer the helpless child needing pity. You suddenly become the angry, demanding, litigious problem. You are disrupting the peace of the able-bodied majority.
Man, you act helpless, you're infantilized. You act empowered and outspoken, you're a nuisance. It is a completely rigged game.
It really is.
And it gets even more restrictive when we look at how society categorizes who even gets to play. Because the final section of the text dives into the hierarchy of diagnosis. It states, and I'm paraphrasing a bit here, that people think autism and Down syndrome are the main disabilities, but they're not. There are tons of various disabilities and medical conditions.
This highlights the human reliance on visual and cultural heuristics again.
Right.
Our brains process an overwhelming amount of environmental data, and to survive, we rely on mental shortcuts. We want to be able to look at a complex situation and instantly categorize it. But disability is an incredibly vast, nuanced spectrum of human experience that completely defies easy categorization.
So society just picks a few highly visible conditions and crowns them as the default.
Pretty much.
But why autism and Down syndrome specifically? Because the author calls those out by name.
Well, it is largely a product of historical media representation, public awareness campaigns, and funding mechanisms. When society has chosen to tell stories about disability, they have traditionally focused on conditions that present with distinct physical characteristics or behavioral traits that are easily identifiable to an outside observer.
Okay, so it's what people recognize.
Exactly. These conditions dominate the public consciousness because they are the specific patterns society has been repeatedly trained to recognize over decades.
It creates a feedback loop.
Yep.
The media portrays a very narrow subset of the disabled experience. The public learns to recognize only that subset and then operates under the assumption that their mental catalog is comprehensive.
And if something isn't in that catalog, it doesn't exist.
Right. Which leads directly to the most pervasive visual shortcut the author points out, which is the wheelchair.
Oh, yes. The author writes that society makes it seem like you have to be in a wheelchair to say you are disabled. The wheelchair has become the universal binary symbol for disability.
I mean, it is literally the icon painted on the pavement of every accessible parking space.
Yes, it's the international symbol of access.
And this brings up a massive issue of trust and authority for me. I mean, why does society demand this visual receipt?
What do you mean by visual receipt?
Well, if someone tells me they have a chronic pain condition or, a neurological disorder that causes severe debilitating fatigue, why does society demand they produce a prop, like a wheelchair, for their lived reality to be considered valid?
It's a great question.
Why is seeing believing, but a person's own word about their own physical body isn't enough?
Well, this raises an important question about suspicion. Because society operates on a baseline of suspicion regarding marginalized groups. There is a deeply ingrained paranoia about being tricked.
Tricked? Tricked into what? Giving away a parking spot?
Actually, yes. Tricked into giving away resources, empathy, or accommodations to someone who hasn't earned them through visible suffering.
Wow.
It's a very cynical view, but it ties directly back to the very first sentence of the text. Society believes disabled people are unable to care for themselves. They equate disability with absolute visible helplessness.
Okay, so if a person is standing upright, looking physically robust, holding a job, and claiming to have a disability,
It breaks the heuristic. The independent person with an invisible disability breaks every single rule society has established.
they don't look helpless.
No, they don't look like the media stereotypes and they aren't using the universal symbol of the wheelchair. Therefore, society's mental shortcut fails.
Right.
And rather than update the operating system of their own biases, society simply denies the person's reality. The text states it plainly. They don't believe in visible disability.
It is societal level gaslighting, literally telling millions of people that their lived physical realities are fictional simply because those realities are inconvenient for the observer's mental filing system.
And look at how the author masterfully closes the loop in the final sentence.
Yeah.
They write that society doesn't believe in invisible disabilities, and they don't believe or can care for ourselves. We end exactly where we began.
We really do.
The overarching societal bias always returns to the denial of autonomy. If you are disabled, you cannot care for yourself. If you can care for yourself, you must not be disabled. It is an inescapable circular logic.
Just a closed loop designed to keep people exactly where society wants them.
Yep.
It forces everyone listening to examine their own mental shortcuts. I mean, when you picture a disabled person, does your mind immediately jump to a wheelchair? Because when we rely on these visual receipts, we aren't just being mentally lazy. We are actively participating in the erasure of a massive portion of the population.
It really requires a conscious confrontation with our own biases.
Yeah.
We have to stop demanding that people perform their pain or their limitations visibly just to earn basic respect and accommodation.
Absolutely. So what does this all mean for us? We've traced the architecture of these societal scripts today, from the initial demand for helplessness and the infantilizing assumption of dumbness to the incredibly complex reality of the three sides of the community.
Right, from daily grooming needs to complete independence.
Yeah, and we've seen how society ignores the weight of round-the-clock medical care and invalidates the independence of those living self-directed lives.
And we explored the mechanics of conditional acceptance, the societal demand that the built environment remain unchanged and that those forced to navigate it remain quiet.
Ultimately, this text dismantles the hierarchy of diagnosis, exposing the flaw in relying on visual heuristics like wheelchairs or specific mainstream diagnoses to validate someone's existence.
It's important to remember that knowledge is only valuable when applied.
Right. So tomorrow, as you move through your routine, look closely at the architecture of your environment. Notice the stairs without ramps, the lack of seating, the subtle ways the physical world signals who belongs and who doesn't.
Pay attention to that.
And when you hear someone speaking up about their needs, pay attention to your own internal reaction. Are you listening to an advocate or are you reflexively annoyed by the noise?
We have to move past the expectation of silence in exchange for basic tolerance.
Because if society's ultimate goal is to keep this community visually categorized, perfectly quiet, and physically unchanging within a world built to exclude them, built to exclude them, what happens to the very fabric of our society on the day the invisible majority finally decides to get irreversibly, unapologetically loud?